Let me bring another man out here, and then I'll mention something. My next guest is a producer who is associated with Mr. Newman, and they've done a lot of things together, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, with Robert Redford, and They Might Be Giants, and Pocket Money is Sometimes a Great Notion, the Marigold's film. I've never known how you become a producer. Maybe you can tell me. Mr. John Foreman. This is probably one of the strangest moments I've ever had on the air. And it will be a shock for the studio audience, I think, because we just learned that Lyndon Johnson has died. And it's odd because we're taping this show. Let's be somewhat precise. What is this, about 7:20 in the evening of the same night that it's on the air, Monday, January 22nd. Did you know backstage?
Yes.
Because apparently it just came through the control room and over the earphones, and somebody mentioned it here. What can you say? It's very condolences, of course, to the family and all of that. It's one of the ironies of tape television. I've had people, famous people have died between tape and airtime, and makes the show look silly because it looks like you went on and didn't mention it or something. Did you get any details, John?
It was a heart attack, apparently.
Yeah.
And I hadn't heard there was one, so it just came through quite suddenly that he had died.
In Texas?
In Texas.
Did you ever meet him, Oriana?
No, I mean, I've been seeing him. But I was in Vietnam 60, 67, 68, where the Americans had reached 5,600,000 soldiers because he had sent them there. And then I was in Hanoi in 69 when, you know, Johnson at that time was not very much loved because of the Vietnam War. I mean, I guess it's not the thing to say tonight, but my souvenirs go to that.
Well, that'll be the thing about him that'll be debated for years to come. I guess as to whether that was...
he was badly dealt with, I think.
Badly dealt with?
I think. History is so difficult to write these days. It'll take some time to evaluate the last 10 years, I think.
Well, you read something like Halberstam's book, and you realize, in the irony of the title, The Best and the Brightest.
Absolutely.
The greatest advice money could buy, he was getting.
Yeah.
Greatest brains, greatest advice, greatest
And from an incredible peak of popularity at the time of the election, to go downhill so steadily and so irrevocably, and not to ever recover in terms of his prestige at all, to a certain kind of terrible oblivion in which he died. Quite remarkable.
It's a new experience for me. I feel caught by it and not knowing what to do. I wonder what's on the air, what people know, and this strange time warp, because they now, of course, know about it. They knew about it long before we did, and yet here we are just finding out about it now.
You feel like we feel in the newspapers when such news arrive. There is always a moment in which you feel lost because you cannot evaluate the thing, and you know that time must pass before you can judge, really. And it's you feel people paralyzed in the stuff of the newspaper. What do we do? How do we take it? You know.
Because you have to go right into action.
And we have to go right into action. I felt that when President Kennedy was assassinated, and each of us was staying there, didn't know how to behave, what to say, how to write it, and all at once we had to go and write something and tell it. And it's very emotional, you know. I imagine what is happening right now in the newspapers all over the world, or in the TV stations where they have to give the news. There are moments in which you feel kind of lost. But you have to overcome, of course, because you have to give the news.
Really absolutely filled with irony, I think. What Johnson was able to achieve domestically, in terms of his domestic program, which came out of sympathy for the death of Kennedy. It had nothing to do with him being able to railroad through Congress the domestic programs, and that was an ironic, not a personal display of power. And on the other hand, in 1964, when I can remember campaigning against Goldwater in Atlantic City for Johnson, the Pentagon Papers had already said that in May of that year they had made the decision to escalate the war. And here I was, not that that makes any difference. The irony of it is that I was in Atlantic City campaigning for the de-escalation of the war when the decision was already made by the person that I was campaigning for to escalate the war.
Well, the irony of his death at this time, somebody said, I think it was Dwight McDonald that said when he was alive, the Vietnam War is a nightmare from which Lyndon Johnson cannot awaken. And nobody dreaming that it would ever be another president's war. And he died not knowing, of course, how it was resolved, if and when it ever is.
Yeah, but can you, is it possible to still believe, I mean, as you say, it's another president's war right now, and it was Lyndon Johnson's at one time. But can you believe that we were having exactly the same discussion in 1964?
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's now continued now, 8 years beyond that, and where the people are absolutely helpless. No wonder they're apathetic. I mean, what effect do they have on the political process? President Chiu has got all his political prisoners stashed away in Vietnam, including the man who ran second in the presidential campaign. I mean, it's just so loaded with
You know what's
cynicism,
funny?
really.
You know, people have said it can't go on forever, of course.
It's the way we evaluate death. When an important man dies, everybody feels lost or confused. I have seen so many people die in this Vietnam War since 1967. When I think of all the 18 years old, 20 years old, or children, or just born children, die so uselessly, and nobody spending a tear or a moment of confusion for them. You do accept the death of thousands of people because they are not important. And we get lost for the death of a single man, even if he's an important one. I cannot help inside myself, not as a journalist, but as a human being, looking at the death of an important man in the same way that I look at the death of a soldier, an American soldier, or a Viet Cong, or a child in a bombing of Hanoi.
Yeah, but you feel, I think, you feel the jolt to history when somebody famous dies.
Yes.
You know, you realize your future is in the hands
Yes.
of these people, and you feel like
It's true.
a torpedo has hit the boat you're in some sense, because...
But also the thousands of people who die in a war make history.
I heard an interview with him just recently. He went to some function at the University of Texas, and he was joking with the newsman and said that he had always been sincere. It seemed like an odd word, but a highly respectable one, really, to be sincere. That seemed to be his credential for the day, that he'd been sincere. Very sad, I think.
Yeah. I think I can see why he'd say that, though, because there was so much effort to make him, to find the image for him. They knew that he was bad on television, and they all told him that, and so he tried to be different and speak differently, lower his voice, use different glasses, different teleprompters, and various things. And he probably, one of the things that's bothered him over the years was maybe they didn't believe me all that time because I came off badly at certain times, or I was caught doing a different voice. It's almost like an actor who says later, I really meant it, you know, even if it didn't look real.
Badly cast in the part.
Yeah.
I understand
Well,
it was
this is-
very visceral, very sincere. Visceral is the word that Cronkite
Visceral?
used. Visceral, yeah.
From the guts.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, strange spot for you, isn't it, John? It's strange, but it's odd. Here we are having to now react as people, whereas presumably we were people before. but the atmosphere has changed. So I'm sorry he's dead. I admired a lot of things about him.
And it's a pity you didn't see the end of the war.
That is the irony. Yeah.
It's a real pity.